Isolde Caron woke up before sunrise, like she had done for the last 30 years. Her hands ached from years of cleaning floors and lifting heavy crates at her second job, but she ignored the pain. Today was supposed to be a good day. She had planned to finally look at a small used car she had been saving for. Her old car rattled every time she started it, and the windows didn't roll down anymore. Buying a better one felt like a reward for all the nights she came home exhausted. After breakfast, she opened her laptop and logged into her bank account. She froze. Her heart started pounding. The number on the screen didn't make sense. 0. She blinked hard, thinking it was a mistake. She refreshed the page. Still 0. Her retirement savings account, the money she had been building for almost 20 years, was empty. Her hands began to shake as she scrolled through the transactions. Luxury store purchases. Spa packages. A boutique in the city. Thousands of dollars gone in just 2 weeks. Her phone buzzed. It was a photo message from Soraya, her daughter. Soraya was smiling in front of a mirror, wearing a new designer jacket, her arms full of shopping bags. The caption said, "Finally living the life I deserve, 2 hearts." Isolde's stomach dropped. She grabbed her phone and called Soraya immediately. "Hello." Soraya answered, cheerful, like nothing was wrong. "Soraya," Isolde's voice trembled. "Where is my money?" "The savings account. It's all gone." "Oh, that." Soraya laughed lightly. "Relax, Mom. I just borrowed it. I'll pay it back eventually. You were just letting it sit there. I used it for something better." "Better?" Isolde's voice cracked. "That was my retirement. That was my life savings. Do you understand what you've done?" "You don't need to retire," Soraya said casually. "You'd be bored anyway. And honestly, you should thank me. I used it to buy things that actually make me happy. Do you know how embarrassing it was for me to see you driving that rusty old car? People at work laughed behind my back. I couldn't take it anymore." Tears burned in Isolde's eyes. You think I am an embarrassment?" Soraya sighed. "Mom, you work too hard for nothing. You live like some poor old woman. You should try to enjoy life, but since you won't, I will. Anyway, I have to go meet my friends. We're going to a rooftop brunch. Bye." The call ended. Isolde sat frozen on her couch, the phone still in her hand. The room felt cold. For years she had sacrificed everything for Soraya, skipped vacations, worked overtime, even gone without heating some winters, just to save that money. And now it was gone. That night, she went to work at her cleaning job, her mind heavy. Every table she wiped, every trash can she emptied, she kept seeing Soraya's smiling face in that photo, holding those bags. The next morning, Isolde sat in her car in the parking lot before work and cried. Her chest ached. She didn't know how she was going to rebuild everything she lost. But she knew one thing, she couldn't stay like this. She wouldn't beg for her money back. She wouldn't let Soraya keep laughing at her. Something inside her changed that day. The quiet, tired woman who always said yes to everyone was gone. Isolde didn't know how yet, but she promised herself she would rise again, and Soraya would regret every word she had said. The weeks after her savings were stolen were the hardest days of Isolde Caron's life. She went to work like always, but inside she felt hollow. Every night when she tried to sleep, her mind replayed Soraya's words. "You're useless and broke." She kept asking herself the same questions. How could my own daughter do this to me? How could she look at everything I gave up for her and just laugh? The pain was sharp, but behind it something stronger began to grow, anger mixed with determination. Isolde refused to let those words define her. She would not stay broken. One rainy evening, she stopped by the corner cafe after her night shift. There, sitting at a table with a cup of tea, was Jareth Malrose, an old family friend she hadn't seen in years. Jareth had once been close to her late husband, and though life had taken them down different paths, he had always respected Isolde's work ethic. "Isolde," he said warmly when he saw her. "You look tired. Sit, please." At first, she tried to smile, but her mask cracked. She told him everything, about the missing money, about Soraya's betrayal, about the years of sacrifices that now felt wasted. Jareth listened silently, his eyes filled with quiet anger on her behalf. When she finished, he leaned closer. "You don't deserve this, Isolde. And maybe there's a way to turn this pain into strength." "What do you mean?" she asked softly. Jareth told her news she didn't expect. Aldrich Thornvale, the owner of the company where Soraya worked, was planning to retire. The company was stable but in need of new leadership. Aldrich didn't want to sell it to some big corporation. He wanted someone he could trust, someone with grit. Isolde, Jareth said, lowering his voice. I think you could do this. You've run your life like a business, holding 2 jobs, saving every penny, never giving up. With my help, you could buy into the company. Isolde shook her head immediately. Me? Jareth, I'm no businesswoman. And after what Soraya did, I have nothing left. But Jareth smiled faintly. You have more than you think. I can help with the investment. What you bring is honesty, discipline, and heart. Aldrich values those more than numbers. Think about it. That night, Isolde lay awake in her small bedroom. The idea sounded impossible. She was just a tired woman who cleaned floors at night. But the more she thought about Soraya laughing at her, the more she realized this was not just about money. This was about respect, about dignity, about proving that her life still mattered. The next week, Jareth arranged a meeting with Aldrich Thornvale. Aldrich was a tall, older man with sharp eyes but a kind smile. He studied Isolde for a long time before speaking. Jareth tells me you are a woman who knows the value of hard work, he said. That is rare these days. Why should I trust you with my company? Isolde's voice trembled, but she spoke from her heart. Because I know what it means to start with nothing. I know how to survive when the world looks down on you. I may not be rich, but I will never give up. I will protect your company like it was my own home. Aldrich leaned back, thoughtful. Then, to her shock, he nodded. That is exactly the kind of answer I was hoping for. The deal is yours if you want it. Isolde's hands shook as she signed the papers weeks later. She could hardly believe it. The woman who once worried about buying groceries now owned the controlling shares of the Varick Group. But she told no one, not even Soraya. At home, Soraya still bragged about her fancy new life, still mocked Isolde's old car and cheap clothes. The new boss at work is coming soon, she said one evening with a smirk. I hope he's not some boring old man. Maybe someone rich, stylish. Not someone useless and broke. Isolde listened in silence, her face calm. Inside, her heart pounded. You'll see soon enough, she thought. The day is coming when you'll know exactly who I am. The announcement came on a bright Monday morning. Every employee of the Varick Group was told to gather in the main hall for an important meeting. A new director was to be introduced, the one who would guide the company into its next chapter. Soraya Valen was buzzing with excitement. She had spent the morning gossiping with her co-workers, her voice full of pride. I just hope the new boss isn't some old, boring man, she said loudly, flipping her perfectly styled hair. We need someone rich, someone who knows how to live in style. Honestly, if it's another plain manager, I'll die of embarrassment. Her friends giggled and nodded, but a few exchanged looks behind her back. Everyone knew Soraya loved showing off more than working hard. In the front row, Aldrich Thornvale stood calmly waiting. He had already stepped back from daily duties, his face unreadable. Beside him, the Syndral Watch, the private security detail led by Tavrik Holt, stood tall, watching the crowd. The room was packed. Hundreds of employees whispered, curious. Who would it be? A wealthy investor? A famous name from the industry? The anticipation grew heavier by the minute. Finally, Aldrich raised his hand. The room fell quiet. Ladies and gentlemen, his voice carried through the hall. Today marks the beginning of a new era for the Varick Group. I am honored to introduce your new director. The doors at the back of the hall opened. For a moment, nobody moved. And then she stepped in. Isolde Caron. She was not wearing her faded work uniform or her old coat. Instead, she wore a simple but elegant suit, one Jareth had insisted she buy for this day. Her hair was neatly tied back, her steps steady. A stunned silence spread through the room. Employees blinked, not believing what they were seeing. To them, she was just a quiet woman they sometimes glimpsed outside, never part of the glamorous world of boardrooms and decisions. Soraya's smile froze on her face. Her jaw dropped. She whispered, almost choking, No, it can't be." Isolde walked slowly to the stage, each step echoing in the heavy silence. When she reached Aldrich, he gave her a respectful nod, then handed her the microphone. "Thank you," Isolde said, her voice calm but strong. "Some of you know me already, though not in this way. For years, I lived quietly, working hard, saving every penny. People laughed at me. Some even said I was useless." Her eyes swept the crowd. Many lowered their gazes, sensing something powerful in her words. And then her eyes stopped on Soraya. Soraya's face was pale, her hands gripping the arms of her chair. "But today," Isolde continued, "I stand here not as someone useless and broke, but as the new director of the Varick Group." The hall erupted in gasps. Employees looked at one another, shocked. Then slowly applause began. It grew louder and louder until the room filled with clapping. Some stood on their feet, cheering for her courage and determination. But Soraya did not clap. She sat frozen, humiliated, her friends staring at her in disbelief. Only days ago, she had mocked her mother for being poor. Now her mother stood on the stage, their new boss. Isolde held her daughter's gaze for a long, heavy moment. No words were needed. The truth was clear, the power had shifted. When the meeting ended, groups of employees whispered excitedly. "Did you see her? That's her daughter, isn't it? She called her mother broke. Now look who's the boss." "I'd be terrified if I were her." Soraya tried to slip out unnoticed, but whispers followed her. Her face burned red with shame. Back on stage, Isolde remained composed. But inside, her heart pounded. For the first time in years, she felt her strength return. This was not just about revenge, it was about reclaiming her dignity. And she knew this was only the beginning. The next morning, the Varick Group's office buzzed with whispers. Everyone was still talking about yesterday's reveal. The quiet woman they thought was ordinary was now their new director. Some admired her, others were stunned. But everyone had one question. What would happen to Soraya Valen? Soraya tried to act normal, strutting into the office in her expensive heels. But her eyes betrayed her. She avoided people's stares, her smile nervous and shaky. She had spent the night trying to convince herself it was a nightmare. Her mother, poor and powerless Isolde Caron, couldn't really be the boss. But here she was, walking into her office with confidence, security guards from the Syndral Watch at her side. The day moved slowly until an email arrived. Mandatory meeting. All staff to the main hall. Soraya's stomach tightened. She already knew what was coming, but she prayed she was wrong. The employees gathered again, whispers filling the room. Tavrik Holt and his men stood at the doors, their presence making it clear this was serious. At the front, Isolde stood calm, her hands resting lightly on the podium. "Yesterday," Isolde began, her voice steady, "I introduced myself as your new director. Today, I must take my first decision. It is not easy, but it is necessary." The room fell silent. Everyone looked around, sensing the storm. Isolde's eyes found Soraya in the crowd. "Soraya Valen, please come forward." Soraya froze. Her knees felt weak, but she forced herself to walk to the front. Every step sounded like a drumbeat in her ears. She stood facing her mother, trembling. Isolde looked at her daughter, her face unreadable. "Do you remember, Soraya?" she said softly. "The night you called me useless? The night you spent my life's savings as if they were nothing? Do you remember laughing while I cried?" The crowd shifted uncomfortably. The truth was spilling into the open, in front of everyone. Soraya's face turned red. "Mother, please not here. Let's talk in private." But Isolde shook her head. "No. Respect is not private. Disrespect was not private either. You humiliated me. Now you will face the truth." Gasps echoed around the room. Soraya tried to speak, her voice breaking. I didn't mean it like that. I was just..." "Enough." Isolde cut her off, her voice sharp as steel. "You are terminated from this company, effective immediately. The Syndral Watch will escort you out." The hall erupted in whispers, shock, even awe. Tavrik Holt stepped forward with his men. "This way, Ms. Valen." "No," Soraya cried, her voice echoing. "You can't do this to me. I'm your daughter." Isolde's eyes glistened, but her voice never wavered. "I did everything for you. I gave you my life. But you took my sacrifice and turned it into shame. Being my daughter does not excuse betrayal. Leave." Tears streamed down Soraya's face as the guards gently but firmly led her away. She struggled, her heels clacking loudly against the floor, her cries fading as the doors closed behind her. The silence that followed was heavy. Everyone stared at Isolde. She stood tall, though her heart was heavy. Finally, one employee began to clap. Then another. Soon the hall filled with applause. It wasn't just respect for her power, it was respect for her courage. That evening, Isolde sat alone in her office, looking out the window at the city lights. For the first time in years, she felt peace. She had reclaimed her dignity, her strength, her future. Weeks passed. Under her leadership, the Varick Group began to thrive. The employees respected her, working harder than ever. Her name, once mocked, now carried weight. As for Soraya, she fell hard. Without her mother's support, she was forced to face the real world. The designer bags didn't pay rent. The spa treatments couldn't buy food. She found herself applying for jobs she once thought were beneath her. Months later, one cold evening, Soraya came to Isolde's office. Her clothes were simple now, her face pale, her voice quiet. "Mother," she whispered, "I was wrong. About everything. I don't want money. I don't want gifts. I just want your forgiveness." Isolde studied her daughter for a long time. The arrogance was gone. The pride had crumbled. For the first time, Soraya looked like a child again, lost, broken, and sorry. Isolde's eyes softened. She stood and walked to her daughter. "Forgiveness is not given in words, Soraya. It is earned. If you are truly ready to change, then we can start again." Soraya nodded, tears running down her face. For the first time, she hugged her mother with sincerity. The story did not end with revenge alone. It ended with strength, dignity, and the possibility of a new beginning.